Hey, this is Troy with another Workflow Wednesday, and welcome to June. I can't believe we're already in June. Time has passed so quickly. And one of the things that I want to talk about today is really ponder two questions. Why ServiceNow? And why ServiceNow right now? I think, coming out of a week of knowledge sessions, many people, I hope like yourself, were able to attend the event in person and hear a lot of things about ServiceNow. And one of the things I want to look at is some of the trends that I've been thinking about and talking about for the last year, and focus on some of the trends that Bill McDermott said in his keynote presentation, and why those trends affecting the work world and the world as we live in today really show up that ServiceNow is platform that should be considered. It should be part of your enterprise to help the experience of work and the flow of work. And so we'll spend some time talking about those trends, the 5 that I've been talking about for the last year, and then also replay them from Bill McDermott's keynote, which will lead us into, if you were at Knowledge or if you weren't, where can you still find that content? Because there is so much great information. I don't want you to feel like you missed out. There are ways to go and find that and pour back through it. And so that's our Workflow Wednesday. Why ServiceNow, and where the heck do I find that Knowledge 22 materials? And so first, why ServiceNow now? Let me jump over and open up this desktop, and we'll start with my trends. Here, let me put up my camera. As I thought about this a year ago, one of the things that I see over and over in the business world, things that were affecting business and affecting the way of work, really boiled down to these top 5 things in my mind. Cyber, risk, and security. At that time, what we're seeing is the reality that the hackers that we face today are much more predatory. The tools that they have are phenomenal. It's frightening. At the same time, the cyber attack surface, the number of things that we have that have IP addresses continues to scale. And so the consequence of breaches, the consequence of that, and the risk it is to our customers, and the risk it is to really the longevity of the business, continue to scale. And so cyber risk and security is a growing concern, and I think that's going to continue to scale. And actually, McDermott uses a different phrase in it. The trend that he identified is really talking about ESG. If you haven't seen that acronym before, it talks about environmental, social, and governance. Looking at all of those risks that affect our organizations. The environmental impact is very real. The social consequences of what our companies are up to can be devastating, as well as governance. We know that cyber risk fits in there, and that ESG is important. And we're seeing that's kind of a progression. The way I think about it is several years back, GRC was kind of the term or the abbreviation for governance, risk, and compliance. And that evolved into integrated risk management, where you take a broader view. Maybe it's not just focused on technology, but it's focused on the enterprise. So we might consider things like supply chain risk. That's part of an integrated risk management scheme, model, if you will. ESG is my belief, kind of the third era, the third generation of that, looking at how does the environment and social relate to that and affect the risk of our companies. And so I think that trend stays consistent and is still there. The next one is really employee retention. And the way that I've looked at that is, about that time we were seeing the great resignation, the great revolt, and we're still seeing that continue. There are many sources that are saying there's still significant turnover coming ahead. That means that our fight for talent and fight to retain our employees is more and more important. The experience as workers come into work is crucial, not only for attracting the right talent, but for retaining them. And that's very important. And Bill McDermott called that out as well, as there is a tremendous talent shortage. And so what we need to be able to do is work more efficiently, more effectively with the staff we have, but at the same time, draw more and attract more employees in. And so that employee experience matters. The next one that I put in there is AI and automation. What we're seeing is the trends that as technology continues to scale, that we see Moore's law not slowing down, which is speeds are doubling and space constrained for a chip continue to get compressed. We can put more and more computing horsepower in a smaller space. Computers are far surpassing things we ever imagined. And what that means for us to address the talent gap, that we need technology to step in and help work alongside us, to help inform decisions, to provide that artificial intelligence to help us find things, because there's so much information. How do we find the things that we need to do our jobs well? And how does that artificial intelligence then drive automation? Could be machine learning, could be some predictive intelligence. There's so many different ways that technology can come alongside us and help us work more effectively. And that trend showed up both in my list, but also in Bill McDermott's keynote. The way that he talked about it is really looking at, how we need that, because the technology speed is overwhelming. It's accelerating so fast that because of that pace of change, we need that intelligence and platform to come alongside us. Both AI and machine learning are things that he called out. My next trend is digitization. And I think this is one that Bill McDermott would call in really looking at the pace of change in transformation or the change of business models. Digitization was forced on us on the pandemic, but it continues to accelerate. People have heard me say that I push back whenever I hear that change is constant, because I don't think that's true. Change is accelerating. And we look at that, you look at the pace of change in technology, you look at the pace of change of business models, where it used to take decades for another company to move into a market and disrupt things. Business model change and transformation and disruption is now being compressed. It's not years, it's months, sometimes even just weeks, that we can see a complete transformation of a business model in an industry in some cases. That pace of change really forces us as business leaders to ensure that the systems that we have can adapt quickly, that we have visibility into the pieces that we have to make up our organization, the technology components, the business components, as capabilities, to be able to understand where they are and how can we shift and adapt and reuse and innovate, to be able to speed our own business transformation in that digitization, to be able to improve the pace of how fast we do business. It's how fast we do business to serve our customers. It's how fast we do business as we get work inside, that we can efficiently pass it between different groups. That digitization, that pace of change, can be addressed well with ServiceNow. And so it's not too surprising that that showed up on both of our lists. For me, this last one is where that we disagree. And maybe disagree is wrong. We just called out different things in our top 5 trends. I included Internet of Everything. And in some ways, that shows up in my first trend, the cyber risk, because of the cyber attack surface. But it's more importantly to really look at, why is the Internet of Everything so important? As things progress, and as we have technology that can show up everywhere within our IT or within our operational technology, our manufacturing lines are becoming smarter and smarter and smarter. And all of that needs to be connected well, and we need to have a very crisp understanding of when things are stood up, what they're interconnected to, and what the priority is. We have to have an understanding of those things. And it's an explosion of the amount of configuration items, CIs, right? If we look inside of ServiceNow, that our IT configuration items are continuing to explode at a rapid pace. But if we embrace it in the operational side, if you're in manufacturing, the operational technology, the number of configuration items that are intelligent are exploding. For us to be able to respond well as businesses, we need to have a good grasp of everything that has an IP address. So that Internet of Everything is a trend we can't ignore. In Bill's keynote, one of the things that he talked about is really the need for low code. And really where that comes from is is in some ways driven by that need for pace of change. That the times for us to be able to put in a request into IT to say, hey, can I have an app for that? I think are long gone. The world of the interwebs have shown us that we can log into a platform and we can drag some things around and we can create a solution, an application, if you will, very quickly without having technical skills. While I myself can program in more languages than I care to admit, the reality is the business apps of today are being created by people that just struggle with the business problem and need some way to solve it yesterday. The pace of change is so fast, and that's driven by the technology gap, driven by a talent gap, that we need systems that will let our business users that understand those business problems to be able to create solutions for them very, very quickly. That means having a system or an infrastructure that can create things with very little to no programming skills and ability. ServiceNow's platform provides that in their application studio and their low-code capabilities. They can not only provide workflows for custom applications, but can also look at your customers and say, in our industry, what are some ways that we could take this enterprise core data, all the things that we know about our organization, and open some of that up for our customers with a custom application? ServiceNow lets organizations do that with little to no coding. That accelerates the pace of change that organizations can follow. And so while we disagree on what one of those trends are, I thought it was very interesting to see that for the most part, we overlap. Both of us agreed that ServiceNow is poised to come alongside organizations like yours to help equip you to address those trends. That might seem like a lofty goal, but if I play it back and look at some of the customers that we at Third Era are helping today, what that really looks like is, one, a primary focus on the Cmdb, the configuration management database. This is the database, as if you will, go back to our time with our kids, or our time as we were children, building things with Legos. The blocks that you have, the different parts that you have, help us determine what we can build. The configuration management database is filled with configuration items, things we care about that are worth tracking. And as we put them into this database, we have to have a structure that show how they're interrelated. That interrelated database gives us information and insight into the impact of what happens if something goes down or we need to do some maintenance on something, and also helps us prioritize which things we should be investing in. We're seeing customers continue to ask for, how do you help us look at, benchmark our Cmdb, help us understand where there are things we're missing, where did we forget to look, or how do we bring these things in to really have a full picture of our organization. And then map that up to services and map that up to the business applications or business capabilities so that we truly have business prioritization and we can see business impact. That key focus on the Cmdb and be able to build that out is an area we're seeing customers focus all the time. And if you look at these trends, that work at that foundational level of the configuration management database is a building block. There's another 4-letter acronym that ServiceNow uses called the Common Services Data Model, the CSDM. And that really stacks on top of the Cmdb. I always draw it like this on my screen, that I have the Cmdb down here, all of the building blocks, and as I build that up into a model that really helps us understand how the business functions, that's my Common Services Data Model. ServiceNow has built so much into their latest, the version 4.0 Common Services Data Model. We have several customers that have turned to us and says, help us understand that journey. Look at those trends and see how having an understanding of the Cmdb with this common service data model that gets me to business impact, I now have a better picture for which vulnerabilities or security incidents, either existing breaches or potential breaches, should I really focus on? How do I prioritize? That cyber risk and security top trend can be addressed by a better CMDB that's mapped out into a common services data model. You now know where you need to focus. The next part on CMDB, how does it affect employee retention and attracting employees? As employees start and as employees work, they need to be able to get to systems to do their work. If you have a CMDB with a common services data model, you can see how those things fit together. As incidents are triggered, they can be tied to specific business services and specific configuration items that are down. That fundamental step in your ITSM processes gives us so much insight into business impact, but also which technologies or class of technologies are causing more incidents than they should. Can help us understand where we should invest to be improving the reliability of our different technology components. If we look at AI and automation, of course, having a better understanding of which things are in our infrastructure gives us ability to automate things faster. We can base routing rules on groups and other things based on data. Again, over and over, having that framework fits together. And so we have lots of customers looking at that. The other place that we see customers coming to us a lot about is really due to the number of innovations that ServiceNow released in this San Diego release. There are so many things that are focused on experience, both employee experience and customer experience. At Third Arrow, we have a digital practice, a practice that focuses completely on experience, user interface and user experience, building it completely on the ServiceNow platform. With the San Diego release, ServiceNow offered so much more capabilities as we move from Service Portal and many different myopic portals, if you will, a portal for IT, a portal for facilities, a portal for legal, a portal for HR, and they're all separate. And many customers we talk to have them cross-linked and it sort of works, but passing users to help them find things across different departments was tough. Passing work between them was tough. We have customers coming to us to help us understand how do they move from Service Portal to ServiceNow's new Employee Center. That's one where if you're wrestling with that, reach out. Glad to sit down and spend some time with our Third Era digital folks and you to talk through how can the San Diego capabilities for user interface and experience and employee center help improve your employee experience or your customer experience without increasing your technical debt, because it's all built on ServiceNow in a way that makes it easier for you to maintain and extend. We're seeing many customers come with questions, and we're being able to help them really see a new experience and see a lot of excitement to see that they can help address that talent gap and increase employee retention and experience. The other thing that we're seeing a lot of focus on is not too surprising. It's my first risk or my first trend, looking at cyber risk. ServiceNow continues to expand in the integrated risk capabilities and security operations capabilities. There are other options out there, but one of the things that ServiceNow brings to bear that no one else can is having that CMDB, that full layer of what are the things underneath it that build our organization, so that as vulnerabilities show up, as security incidents show up, as we put in compliance and control objectives to be able to know how are we in compliance with the regulations that we need to follow, how do those relate to the things, the configuration items in our organization, and how do they roll up to business impact so we know which organizations truly need to help with our compliance and help mitigate risks before they become a problem. We're seeing many organizations turn to us to say, how can ServiceNow help us, not only with our internal risk framework, our control framework, but also look at vendors and how do we work with third parties and understand the risks with them so that we can bring them into our organization as kind of our extended platform, but have a way to manage that risk, whether it's third party or whether it's based on our risk framework. Many organizations are turning to us at Third Era to help them address that need. And of course, there's many across the platform. There's so many capabilities. I just went through you have to recertify a new releases every 6 months. And so I just went through a number of the recertifications, and there's so much cool capabilities from a manufacturing, new offerings in procurement, both in the financial world and overall procurement as well as specific to telco. Many capabilities showing up on the platform. And that pace of change continues to accelerate. Remember, I said change is not constant, it accelerates. How does ServiceNow do this? They do that by really having the cloud platform where they can see pockets of innovation. They see pockets of light, if you will, and say, there's something valuable here. How do we take and extend that as a product across the platform? And every 6 months, they come out with new innovations, expanding the way that people can experience work, both your customers and your employees. And so, if you look at those trends, that's why ServiceNow matters right now. And so let me turn to my second question, which is, all right, I went to Knowledge, but I'd like to share that with my coworkers, or I wasn't able to go to Knowledge, and I would like to replay some of that content. Let me jump over here. If you go to ServiceNow's Knowledge site, you'll see that you can click into all 4 of the events. In this one, I clicked into Las Vegas, and you can see there's a thank you. Thanks for being there. Thanks for supporting us. But it is a digital event. If you register, you can sign in, and you can get all of that on-demand content at your leisure and go back through it. If you have additional questions, I'm easy to find on LinkedIn. You can find me, Troy Pasola, on LinkedIn. On YouTube, my channel is YouTube/C Now with Troy. You can find me there, post comments at either place, and I'm glad to help you. Let me know how I can help you address the top 5 risks that we see in the marketplace right now, utilizing ServiceNow, and how ServiceNow can truly become that control tower for your enterprise. And so thank you for this time. Enjoy the rest of your week and reach out. Let me know how I can help. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.